Welcome to another edition of Real Bigfoot Encounters with Reverend Jeff. This week's story comes to us from a classic story of William Rowe from the affidavit from 1957. This encounter predates the Patterson sightings and its video, so let's hear his story. Ever since I was a small boy back in the forest of Michigan, I've studied the lives and the habits of wild animals. Later, when I supported my family in northern Alberta by hunting and trapping, I spent many hours just observing the wild things. They fascinated me, but the most incredible experience I ever had with a wild creature occurred near a little town called Tetchwan Cache, British Columbia, about 80 miles west of Jasper, Alberta. I had been working on a highway near Tetchwan Cache for about 2 years. In October 1955, I decided to climb 5 miles up Mika Mountain to an old deserted mine just for something to do. I came in sight of the mine at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon after an easy climb. I had just come out of a patch of low brush into clearing when I saw what I thought was a grizzly bear. It was in the brush on the other side. I'd shot a grizzly near that spot about a year before. This one was only about 75 yards away. I didn't want to shoot it. I had no way to get it out. So I sat down on a small rock and watched while my rifle was in my hands. I could see part of the animal's head and the top of one shoulder. A moment later, it raised up and stepped out into the opening. Then I saw it was not a bear. This, to the best of my recollection, is what the creature looked like and how it acted as it came across the clearing directly towards me. My first impression was of a huge man, about 6 feet tall, almost 3 feet wide, and probably weighing somewhere near 300 pounds. It was covered from head to toe with dark brown, silver-tipped hair, but as it came closer, I saw by its breasts that it was a female. And yet its torso was not curved like a female's. Its broad frame was straight from shoulder to hip. Its arms were much thicker than a man's arms and longer, reaching almost to its knees. Its feet were broader proportionally than a man's, about 5 inches wide at the front and tapering to a much thinner heel. When it walked, it placed the heel of its foot first, and then I could see the gray-brown skin or hide on the soles of the feet. It came to the edge of the brush I was hiding in, within 20 feet of me, and squatted down on its haunches. Reaching out its hands, it pulled the branches of the bushes towards it and stripped the leaves with its teeth. Its lips curled flexibly around the leaves as it ate. I was close enough to see that its teeth were white and even. The shape of the creature's head was somewhat resembled a Negro's. The head was higher at the back than at the front. The nose was broad and flat. The lips and chin produced further than its nose, but the hair that covered it, leaving bare only the parts of its face around its mouth, nose, and ears, made it resemble an animal as much as a human. None of its hair, even on the back of its head, was longer than an inch, and that on its face was much shorter. Its ears were shaped like a human's ears, but its eyes were small and black like a bear's, and its neck was almost unhuman, thicker and shorter than any man's I've ever seen. As I watched this creature, I wondered if some movie company was making a film at this place and that what I saw was an actor, made up to look partly human and partly animal. But as I observed it more, I decided it would be impossible to fake such a specimen. Anyway, I learned later that there was no such company near that area, nor in fact did anyone live in Mika Mountain according to the people who lived in Tetchwan Cache. Finally, the wild thing must have gotten my scent, for it looked directly at me through an opening in the bush. A look of amazement crossed its face. It looked so comical at the moment, I had to grin. Still in a crouched position, it backed up 3 or 4 short steps, then straightened up to its full height and started to walk rapidly back the way it had come. For a moment, it watched me over its shoulder as it went, not exactly afraid, but as though it wanted no contact with anything strange. The thought came to me that if I shot it, I would possibly have a specimen of great interest to the scientists of the world. I had heard stories of the Sasquatch, the giant hairy Indians that live in the legends of British Columbian Indians, and so many claim are still in fact alive today. Maybe this was Sasquatch, I told myself. I unleveled my rifle. The creature was still walking rapidly away, again turning its head to look in my direction. I lowered the rifle. Although I have called the creature it, I felt now that it was a human being, and I knew I'd never forgiven myself if I killed it. Just as I came to the other patch of the brush, it threw its head back and made a particular noise that seemed to be a half laugh and half language, and which I could only describe as kind of a whiny sound. Then it walked from the small brush into a stand of long pole pine. I stepped out into the opening and looked across the small ridge just beyond the pie to see if I could see it again. It came out on the ridge a couple of 100 yards away from me, tipped its head back again, and again emitted only the sound that I had heard it make. But what this half-laugh, half-language was meant to convey, I don't know. It disappeared then, and I never saw it again. I wanted to find out if it lived on vegetation entirely or ate meat as well, so I went down and looked for signs. I found it in 5 different places, and although I examined it thoroughly, I could find no hair or shells or bugs or insects, so I believe it was strictly a vegetarian. I found one place where it had slept for a couple of nights under a tree. Now the nights were cold up on the mountain, and this time of year especially, and yet it had no use of fire. I found no sign that it possessed even the simplest of tools, nor a single companion while in this place. Whether this was Sasquatch or not, I do not know. It will always remain a mystery to me unless another one is found. Signed, William Rowe. For William, this was the strangest day of his life, and for me, it was yet another real Bigfoot encounter. Thanks for watching. I'm Reverend Jeff, and may the Squatch be with you.